Well, jeepers! You're listening to Smash or Pass with JayBee, Millie, and Smash.
And today we have a special guest. So filling in for Smash, we have Rihanna.
Hi.
So today we are going to be taking a look at Scooby Doo Moon Monster Madness. And this week it was the first time for JayBee and I watching through this. It was one that definitely kind of slipped over our radar, I want to say, in kind of like our time with Scooby Doo. Is that fair to say, JayBee? It was kind of like not your watching era.
No, I was completely out of this because this was back in the era where after watching Shaggy and Scooby Doo Get a Clue, my kind of love for the series fizzled out and it never really recovered until quite recently. But I'm surprised this didn't bring me back in because I'm notoriously kind of in love with stuff like sci-fi and alien stuff, to the point where I think my views on something classic like the Alien Invaders was so different to Millie's. So yeah, I don't know, I'm curious to know what Millie's take on this is, especially because I think you hate aliens.
I don't hate aliens, it's just Alien Invasion or Invaders wasn't my favourite, but the perspective I'm really interested in is of course Rihanna. So Rihanna it's the first time appearing on the channel, but at the same time they have been like a member within our community for a long time now. So do you just want to tell us a little bit about your Scooby background, kind of like how you got into watching it, how much you've enjoyed it, and I guess if you remember the first time you saw this movie?
Yeah, so I started watching Scooby Doo pretty much as a baby because my mum, she was like a child still when it first came out, so she watched it, and then it kind of, when I was born, like it was an automatic thing for me to watch, and I don't think I've ever stopped watching it. I remember everything from like the first ever episode to the new episodes that are coming out with Scooby Doo and Guess Who. So I think Scooby has been such a big part of my life, and I've been in and out of hospital quite a bit because I've got a chronic illness, and I remember coming home from school and like usually it would be early and Scooby Doo being on. When I had time off school because I was ill, Scooby Doo was on, so I've never really stopped watching it. And I think the first time I watched Scooby Doo Moon Monster Madness was probably when it first came out on DVD. My mum got it for me and I watched it straight away, and for some reason it wasn't one of my favorites, but then I rewatched it a year later and I picked up on small little like parts with like when they're on the moon. It reminded me a bit of like Scooby Doo and the Cyber Chase and things like that, so yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I do think that's something that's really impressive about Scooby Doo and the Cyber Chasers. It's meant to be like a reflective thing and be the ones that they've already gone through. But like you say, this one especially like really links to it, almost like the chronology is a bit different, that almost this should have been before that one. So yeah, I completely see what you're saying with the Cyber Chase.
Yeah, and I guess timeline-wise, it would have been, right? Like, I don't know if it's all part of one continuity, but Cyber Chase is theoretically set in the Zombie Island era when they're meant to be a bit older anyway.
Yeah, so I guess the chronology of Scooby-Doo is always like an interesting conversation because like you say, in that time they're older, but at the same time it's before, so who knows. But yeah, I really, really like the point you picked up on then about the kind of two appearing almost linked. So I guess just briefly, for anybody that's not seen this one for a while, or like JayBee and I haven't seen it at all, Scooby Doo Moon Monster Madness is about one of the early trips to the moon. They're starting to build a resort there, and Scooby and the gang are lucky enough to like win the opportunity to be one of the first people to go out and see this place that's been built. Of course, with space there's a lot of unknown things, and on their time on the moon, they believe they come across an alien, and of course that leads to an entire mystery, a series of traps, trying to work out and get to the bottom of what's been going on there. So that's kind of a general overlay of the movie, I want to say, but we'll be going to take a look at the plot a bit more and seeing what it's about. Now, one thing I want to say is when we put the DVD on, the title page is the introduction to What's New Scooby-Doo, and that was the main series I watched as a child, so whenever I hear that music, I'm always like, okay, I'm going to enjoy this. I mean, can you remember what series it was that you first enjoyed watching, Rihanna?
I think the one that I mainly grew up on was also What's New Scooby Doo, but the one that I've really enjoyed watching, and I was rewatching it recently, was the 13 Ghosts of Scooby Doo. I feel like
really
that
like
one
that.
is just iconic.
It really was. I enjoyed that too. It was a very good era for Scooby.
Yeah, it's one of the first ones that I had on DVD, you know, one of like existing things. I can't remember too much about it, but I like it. I like it.
So this movie starts off with Daphne taking their driving test. And I think one thing that's like interesting about this is like in Scooby Doo, it's quite a common thing that Daphne owned the mystery machine, I want to say.
Yeah.
So it just seems strange that she's the only one that can't drive it, because Scooby and Shaggy are there like, oh, look at our license cards. Like, even Scooby managed to pass his test and's got his license, and Daphne's just there having a bit of a struggle.
I mean, I can't remember when it was first said that the mystery machine was Daphne's, because instantly this sequence, I'm thinking about the Kate Milton movies, because Shaggy, you know, piping up to say, okay, I've already got my license, reminded me of that as well, because I think maybe that was one of the first ones that made them the oldest one, because even like the back of those toys that we unboxed ages ago, I think Fred is said to be the oldest, but like Shaggy was portrayed as the oldest in that continuity.
I mean, when we talk about ownership of the mystery machine, I do go back to the Kate Milton movie where she's like, oh, I've got the van, and like it's parked next to all those really nice cars, and they're like, oh, okay. But
I think it is from somewhere else as well. I think it's always been quite a feature of it, but then again, I'm thinking stuff like Mystery Incorporated did a bit to phase that out a bit, because Fred's so in love with the mystery machine, but I suppose you don't need to own something to be in love with it, right?
And I guess I'd not really thought about it, but Daphne is the only one that we haven't seen driving the mystery machine, because there's one movie where Velma takes everyone on a road trip and her driving's like, they almost end up going off like cliff edges and stuff.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, Rihanna, have you seen the Courage the Cowardly Dog movie with Scooby-Doo?
Not just yet. I think I'm starting to watch that in a couple of days' time.
Okay, so I guess I won't do any spoilers here, but there's kind of things pointing towards, I guess, I don't want to spoil it, but implications of Daphne's driving test in this, if I like to say it like that. So, I don't know, you are right though, up until this point, we've not really seen Daphne drive the mystery machine, and even back in the kind of Mook animation movies, it's like Daphne and Fred as a double act, and if Fred's the one that's producing Daphne's show, maybe he also drives the machine as well, so no, you are right.
I mean, and so when Daphne's doing the driving test, she like crashes into a tree, and I thought that this is a good point to like share some like stories of I can't remember whether it was my auntie or my sister, they've both got some stories about their driving test. So I think my auntie drove into a wall on her driving test. My sister nearly drove my dad off a bridge when she was learning to drive. And my granddad tried to teach my gran to learn to drive, and when she thought she was in drive, she was in reverse, and she ended up like nearly driving back into the house, and she never got behind the wheel of a car ever again. So I can see that Daphne's going to have some struggles, because I think it's quite a common thing. Like I said, like a few of my family have got some very interesting stories about trying to drive a car.
I don't know. I'm inclined to believe that Daphne would just be good at whatever she tries to do. I mean, that's probably just my bias, but that's
you are definitely biased with Daphne.
But I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just a bit of a step back to portray her as being incompetent at something, but maybe the movie does a bit to maybe compensate for that at the end. But I don't know. Definitely, maybe I'd rather it be Shaggy that's like struggling to do this, because I kind of feel like with his more clumsy approach to things, I'm just imagining a sequence where he's trying to learn to drive and obstacles in front of him just turn into like burgers and stuff that he like drives into. I don't know. I just think maybe Daphne should have been a bit more capable, but I don't know.
I actually agree with that, because like I've just remembered the only time I think we've seen Daphne drive a car was in the 13 Ghosts of Scooby Doo, and also when it was I think it was it the new Scooby Doo Mysteries, or was it one of the others, where it's Scooby, Shaggy, Scrappy Doo and Daphne, and she was driving the red mystery machine. But
Yeah.
I feel like Shaggy would definitely be the one to struggle a bit more because in all of the depictions, he gets very like sidetracked very easily. So he would be like, "Oh, there's fast food joint that's going there," or something like that.
Yes, I like the series that you're talking about there. Daphne does almost get like, I want to say the mum of the group role, because Shaggy can be a bit like struggles to focus on one thing. So it's kind of like she needs to bring it together and take direction and like take them places. So that's a really, really good point, because that was so much more before this movie came out.
I mean, it's all timeline dependent, really, and there's just no way of mapping out what fits into which continuity and what is meant to be implied from things. Like, even back in, like, what's meant to be in this similar era, the Fantasy movie, you see that Fred's in high school doing a high school project, and so I guess we're meant to assume that this is around about that time, but then that's kind of also implying that they've had 10, 12 different mysteries within 2 school years,
Yeah.
which is a bit... I mean, it's possible, but it's also a bit nuts as well.
Going back to Daphne's character and the driving thing, I do think she's given the most character angles. Like, again, we're at a time here where they're like, oh yeah, Daphne can't do this, and so, she's struggling and it's her that's kind of a bit behind everyone else. Whereas then she gets some story arcs like in the Samurai Sword, where it's like, yeah, no one could do this without her.
But I feel like Daphne is always robbed of stuff like this. So even Samurai Sword, it was meant to be her movie, so she was, bigged up to be this martial arts expert, and that was really good because it got them to a different location. But then the conclusion of that ultimately saw Shaggy and Scooby being the heroes that, like, defeated the Black Samurai. And I think it was even, do I want to say last movie we covered on the show, which was Franken-Creepy, where Daphne starts off getting their own show, and then that's kind of
overshadowed,
just exposition versus it following on from the story. Like, they could have completely Zombie Islanded that and gone, okay, so Daphne's going to this location to research for her show, or like I proposed in that episode, it could be like one of Daphne's crazed fans like Daphne who would take what they've learned from that show and then go and be the villain. But I don't know, I just feel that the only time that Daphne has been the main was probably, I'm going to say, the 2002 movie, because if you think about where everyone starts in that film and then where they end, I think she's the only one that gets a story arc as such.
Yeah.
Because it's like damsel in distress to karate warrior.
Yeah, I guess Velma just continues on the same track. So does Fred, Shaggy and Scooby. She's the only one that kind of does some adapting.
I guess Fred as well, but it's just kind of like he learned at the start that he needs to give people credit for stuff, and then he doesn't really go on a journey the same way Daphne does. He just changes at the end. Yeah. So
the next part of the movie I want to touch on is the titles, where they do the intergalactic thing really well. I want to say they start to look at like star constellations and then turning those into the names and the pictures. And I just think that's really unique, because normally they just experiment with different like cartoon art styles. So I think it was done really well. I don't know.
It reminded me of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Like the kind of travelling towards space and then their faces appearing. I don't know whose era did it like that. I want to say maybe the 5th Doctor to the 7th, that it kind of looked like that. I'm not too sure. But I guess, Rihanna, if you remember the titles of this movie, what did you kind of think to them?
I honestly really enjoyed it. Like, I think Scooby Doo, throughout all of the movies, they do the titles really well, because I think of one of the ones that always sticks in my mind because it creeps me out so much is in the Monster of Mexico with the green eyes that like go for like the chupacabra and to create the like names and everything. And seeing the constellations, like for me, I'm a really big fan of space and like quantum physics and things like that. And it was just so cool to see, and they just did that spot on.
That's amazing. And one thing I really like about the titles as well is I think that 9 times out of 10 they do the music really well with Scooby Doo, and I feel like we're in a bit of a time with Scooby at the minute where we're not getting chase scenes the same way to enjoy the music, so the titles are the main opportunity to like listen to what they do with that.
Although I will say that I don't really remember the music from this scene.
It wasn't like a song like they sometimes do. It was like an instrumental thing, but I do think that it had that kind of standard kind of space feel to it, I want to say.
I remember maybe thinking it reminded me a bit of the music from Zathura, if anyone's seen that movie, but yeah, I don't know too much about the opening titles in terms of music, but I remember liking the visual. The visual was really nice.
So then after the titles, they're beginning to set the plot up in that some superstars are going to be going into space. So little like random sideline question here. JayBee, I'm going to aim this at you first. If you were like Mystery Inc. and you were going into space with some superstars, which two would you most want to go to space with?
Which two superstars?
Yeah.
Are you really asking me that?
Yeah.
Kate Middleton and Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Okay.
Obviously. What? Do you even know me?
I was just curious.
Oh
I was thinking if they're like going to space with people, do you have two people that you'd want to go into space with?
Wait, does that not include you? Like, have I like
no, you've
given their
replaced
ticket?
me, thank you. Rihanna, do you have any celebrities that you think would be interesting to go and see space with?
I think it would be really interesting to like go in space with Stephanie McMahon, and I'm not too sure who else. Like, part of me does want to say possibly Jensen Ackles and Jared Padalecki because of Supernatural, and I feel like them, or even like their characters in Supernatural, Dean Winchester and Sam Winchester. It would be interesting to see their reactions in space, but I think I would definitely take Stephanie McMahon with me. And you know, I think I'll also take Triple H because I have two strong wrestlers to protect me from any aliens.
That's amazing.
I didn't think about aliens, you know.
Have you not watched this movie?
Well, I'm not. When I think about space, I'm like, okay, so say if I was in
You
space,
just get to think that you're going to get to jump on the moon. You're not thinking of anything other than jumping around on the moon, are you?
No, well, I'm just thinking about all the possibilities. So if it's like a luxury like cruise liner, I've got Kate Middleton, Sarah Michelle Gellar. We're just in some like Loki type of like space bar, just talking Daphne stuff.
Okay.
I'll do an in-space interview. That would be good. What about you? You didn't answer. What would yours be?
I didn't, and that's because I genuinely don't know. What do I think would be interesting to go to space with?
I think you'd want to go with like a dreamboat, like David Tennant.
I don't think. Although that could be really interesting, like someone from the cast of Doctor Who, so maybe David Tennant, because they spent like so much of their acting career having to like speculate on literally space and time, that to actually see them go to space would be really interesting. So I might say like two of the Doctor Who doctors, like David Tennant and Matt Smith.
Ooh, yeah.
Just because they've had to work on speculating what it'd be like to kind of see what it is actually like.
I like that. I also like those questions like, what
Just a random little sideline
famous
there.
people would you take to not repopulate the planet, because that just sounds creepy, but to invest in like who's going to be the specialist for this, who's going to be the specialist for that. But that's a really good question, because I think realistically, if someone's going to do something like that, they are going to choose some celebrity names to get on there to promote it a bit. So,
and I mean,
like
it
that.
does come up later why they chose the celebrities that they did, but it's just, I just thought it'd be an interesting question. So yeah. So we work out that we say that the superstars are going to space and that 5 people are going to be joining them as well, and this turns out to be Mystery Inc. As well as those going to be in space, there's also the person funding the project that kind of turns up in the money suit, and I feel like from the start they kind of set them up as a character that's maybe not to be liked too much.
The Sly Baron.
It is. See, when I was watching this, I thought Daphne was insulting him because I heard Daphne call him Sly, and I was like, oh, that's a bit mean. What's he done to you? And then, like, it turned out to be his name.
Sly Baron. I mean, it is a very obvious villain name, although it doesn't really work out that way. So maybe it's like a red herring.
Maybe.
So, are these people based off real life people at all? I don't know.
I don't know. I think you just make characters.
Because I know there's a character in this called Ridley, I think, who's meant to be based off someone from the Alien series. I think the one with Sigourney Weaver, but I might be wrong.
I aren't sure. But I guess the writers are gonna like take inspiration from people they meet, and also from watching other Scooby like shows and movies as well, because at this time Scooby had been around close to 50 years when this came out.
Yeah. I don't know when the 50th anniversary is. I think it's 52 years this year, so if this is in 2015...
It'd been about 46 years. So the people writing at this point are going to have been fans from a young age.
So what's everyone's opinion on the spacesuits that they all wear?
For me, when I saw them, I got spooky space kook vibes from the helmet with like the lights in it.
Yeah, I can see that. And as well, I thought that kind of, you know, towards the end when there's like a huge lineup of these spacesuits, the characters are like all blue and they have that glass dome over them. I think when they're trying to like show what an alien army would have been or something. And there, for that blue outfit, the glass over them, like you say, there is certainly space kook vibes. I liked, there's one thing I really liked, one thing I didn't like. I really liked things like how for Daphne, they did that green line around her neck to represent like the ascot and the scarf. But I didn't like how they almost look. I think the shaping looked so defined that it almost looked like they were made out of metal as opposed to like a natural material.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a weird thing to pick up on, but I really did like how they just did that green line for Daphne to kind of try and do the colour match.
Definitely. I think Daphne looks the best in the suit out of all of them. I think they colour matched it well. I don't know about Scooby though, because I think it's a bit odd, and I'm saying odd even though this is probably how they would do it, that he's in a full-on suit. I kind of think that maybe for Scooby it would have suited him better if they found something cool that, like, I don't know, just a bit of technology where if they pressed the SD on his collar, it like just has like a bubble formed around him. Because I don't know, I don't know how to colour match Scooby, because you'd either just need to make it brown and black, which then would just look like too much like Scooby anyway, or they've like, I can see on the front cover that they've made it yellow and silver, which I don't know, I think that everyone else is so perfectly colour matched to what they'd normally wear that maybe Scooby's would even be some type of blue, given that their collar's more like that blue turquoise vibe. So I don't know how I've changed Scooby's outfit.
I really like how they do interpret the characters' looks though throughout the Scooby series. So, for example, like you were saying about Scooby, like I think it's difficult for them to stylize Scooby because there was one instance where they had them in a t-shirt and I just thought it looked quite awkward. Whereas with like Daphne, for example, we get used to seeing them in different outfits. So their What's New outfit's different to the kind of like classic Daphne, which is different to Zombie Island Daphne, then the Samurai Sword Daphne. They change their look quite a lot, whereas Shaggy and Scooby just kind of maintain the same look throughout.
That's what annoys me about the Funko Pop products, because Scooby and Shaggy change the least, and yet there's about 8 Scooby Funko Pops and 2 Shaggy Funko Pops, and I just on the top of my head, I can think about 10 amazing outfits worn by Daphne. And yet there's only one Daphne Daphne Funko Pop. And it's like, I know people get cynical nowadays about kids' movies just being made to sell toys and stuff, but it's like, I kind of feel like Scooby is so much the opposite way, where they give them cool outfits, they give them cool settings, and yet we never really get that level of merchandise with releases that aren't in the cinema. Like, obviously with Scoob, when it's a cinema release, they like pumped out quite a bit of merchandise for that, but I wish that they would just give us more of the rest of the gang, because they do make an effort to design their outfits nicely.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a shame.
Do you have a favourite look for the characters? Like, say for example, like their What's New outfits, or a like specific movie, like the Zombie Island one, where they're all kind of that little bit older, Rihanna?
I think my favorite for Fred is where he's got like any of the ones where he's wearing the ascot, because that is iconic for him. But I think for Daphne, I really like her look for in Zombie Island. And then for Velma, I feel like possibly what she was wearing in The Witch's Ghost really, like, there's something about it that looks slightly different from the other ones, and I prefer that one. And then for Shaggy and Scooby, like, Scooby's pretty much the same in some of them, and then Shaggy, I think also, I think the alien invaders. I don't know why. This one just like came into my head.
No, I completely see why, those are like certain standout ones. Like, and I think I see what you mean about the Velma look then as well. Like, just like, for example, the jumper and everything seems to be more defined. It just seems to be, I don't know. I can't put it into words, but what I can say is that I do.
What's your favourite look for them then, really? For all of them individually?
See, it's really, I'd say it was controversial, but because I like grew up with What's New, and I know that I feel like there isn't going to be anyone else on the internet that's going to say this, but even for Fred, I'd say the What's New look, where he's got that kind of more sports style jumper, just because that is, like, that was me getting home from school at 3:30. That was the intro that was going to be on the TV. It was what I was going to try and force my nephew to watch with me when I thought that I'd got too old for it, so I could still try and watch it. Yeah, for me, like, the What's New look is exactly what I remember. What about you, JayBee?
Oh, I think I agree with Rihanna. I think with Fred, it's always going to be the classic outfit for me. I can't think about any that will top it, I just don't think you can get more iconic with Fred than the ascot, than that kind of classic look. I think that's always what I think to when I think about Fred, even though, I grew up on What's New Scooby Doo, but I just think the ascot works. I think all of Daphne's are good, but the one that stands out to me from childhood, I think, is the 2002 movie one. I know that, like, it's not traditional Daphne at all, but I just really like the boots and the outfit, and I just think the whole vibe just seems very nostalgic to me. Like, they would never adapt a costume like that again, and I know some people think maybe that's for the best, that's for the worst, but I don't know, I just think that that's such a look as well. Velma, I don't know. I think
feel like it doesn't change very much. I feel like
the same.
She's kind of similar to the Shaggy and Scooby thing, where they just always wear the same thing.
Yeah, she has like desert pants on, and I think in some of the classic ones that looks cool. And yeah, Shaggy and Scooby stay the same. I'd like to see more movies with the red t-shirt, just for, like, not just variety, but maybe the vibe of the red t-shirt films, they can, like, bring some of them back a bit more. But
so just speaking of different looks for the characters a second, and I've been researching Christmas presents for JayBee recently, which is why I've been reminded of this. Did either of you growing up have, you can get a collection of Scooby Doo figures, you can get the classic look where Fred's wearing the ascot and stuff, but did you ever have that monster series where, for example, I think Daphne's wearing a green skirt and a purple t-shirt? They all have a different look and they have, like, a logo on them and stuff.
I guess we can start with Rihanna while I think about that.
I think so.
It's just, like, popped into my head again. Like, I found them when I was researching Christmas gifts, and I was like, well, speaking of different looks, I'm just going to see if anyone else, or if I was dreaming of it.
I think I remember seeing them. I'm not sure if I had them. I've got so much, like, Scooby Doo, like, figures and stuff. I think I may have one or two from that collection, but I'm not 100% sure.
You remember them, JayBee?
No. Were they ones that... I think I might have seen them on eBay. Are they, like, the ones that almost look like they're going to the beach?
I don't know that I'd have said that I'll get you a picture of them later so you know what I mean, but yeah, just popped into my head while we were talking about the different looks for the characters. So next part of the movie is they're kind of preparing to go to space, they're meeting the team, and again, I feel like we're coming back to Daphne's character here. They kind of meet their friend in this, it's like really complimentary to them, and I feel like it's another one where they're kind of guilty of just bringing Daphne down a level. Like, as it is, they've made her the only one that can't drive, but then she reverts to just doing like this really basic kind of like hair flipping thing a lot, as opposed to much substance. I want to say, like, there's one part at this stage where she's literally hitting Velma across the face with her hair because she's doing this hair flip.
Yeah, I don't know. I always disagree with you and with people on the internet when they kind of use stuff like that to say that Daphne's a lesser character, because I can understand with like the driving thing, because obviously it's almost dumbing her down a bit. But I'd say one thing that's always stood out to me with Daphne is that she makes, I guess, being a girly girl, being feminine, not mutually exclusive with being weak or flowery. Like, just thinking about scenes that I really like with Daphne. So obviously you've got the Scooby Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed, when she solves, like, when she gets out of Wickles' cage with the kind of makeup sequence and she's like, oh, I love being a girl type thing. Or anything where she does that. Even, I think it's Aloha Scooby Doo, when she manages to tell which way the wind is blowing.
Yeah, with
like,
her hair.
With her hair. So I think her being like kind of girly like that isn't a sign that she's showing less substance. But in a way, I kind of feel like she feels like she's finally found someone in Shannon that she can be that way with, whereas I'm sure that if she tried something like that with Velma, she would just get a sarcastic comment or something.
Yeah, I mean, I do get some of what you're saying. Like, I like it when it's used to show them as a character, like you say, like getting out of that lock because they know how to do the transfer sheets and the hair thing. It makes it cool, whereas I just feel like when she's just stood there flipping her hair, not achieving anything except hitting Velma in the face, it's kind of a bit, it doesn't make it the level that it actually helping progress things does. I mean, that being said, Daphne was like my main character that I like, I want to say even aspired to when I was watching this when I was little. They were the character that I'd certainly say I cared about the most.
Me too.
What would you say, Rihanna? Growing up, did you have like a specific character that you latched onto or that you like related to, or did you just like the entire concept of Mystery Inc?
I think growing up, I definitely, for me, and I don't know how weird this will sound, but I really did like grip onto like Scooby. Like, I always liked the character of Scooby, and then as I got older, and especially like I started going to secondary / high school, I became like, I noticed that I had a passion for like physics, so I became more drawn to Velma. But I think relating like to what happens with the hair flipping, one thing that's just popped into my mind is that they do this quite a lot in Scooby Doo movies, where like Daphne will do something that will upset Velma, or Velma will do something that upsets Daphne, and then it brings them closer as like friends near the end. And it's like, it's a weird little thing.
Yeah, I think they do have an interesting relationship throughout Scooby Doo. Like, I'm thinking, is it Music of the Vampire which one is it, JayBee, where Daphne's like, they're sharing a room and Daphne's out on the balcony in the middle of the night and she's like, oh, I love Fred to Velma, and they start having like these like heart-to-heart moments. There is a couple of movies where they, I
think it's Stage Fright,
that was it, sorry, thank you. There is a few like ones where they do start to have this different relationship, like the one where Daphne's obsessed with buying those dolls at the Comic-Con, and it's like, oh, okay, Daph, great, Velm. They have some movies where they're so distant and it's so different, like, oh, you know, brains and beauty, and the two can't be combined, and then all of a sudden they get this really close friendship, and then there's some distance again. And yeah, it's just, it's like, I'd say it's the dynamic that changes the most of everybody in the gang, because Daphne and Fred are always really strong, Shaggy and Scooby are always really strong, and I think because it's almost like there's two pairings there, Velma's relationships are the ones that change the most. So in some things like Mystery Incorporated, they're affiliated with Shaggy. Their relationship with Daphne is like we said, they can be so different and then be so close. And in the first live action Scooby Doo, Velma's like, oh, you know, Fred, you never choose to be with me, you never choose to be around me. So I just think because there's two natural pairings, their character does change quite a lot.
I guess that's how it's written, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess we've met a Shannon, and it's funny though because I think Shannon, or maybe it isn't Shannon, maybe it's that sly guy, but they've kind of used the line that they spared no expense, which reminded me quite a bit of Jurassic Park, and it was like, okay, so clearly something's gonna go horribly wrong here. I don't know. They also then mentioned the test scores.
Yeah, so they've gone from Daphne doing these little hair flips and being all giggly and girly to, okay, she also got the highest result, and Velma doesn't take that well. And so like you're saying here, Rihanna, I feel like that's where they start to get this dynamic where it's like, oh, they start to get distance again.
Yeah, and I think in some ways, I feel like Velma possibly sees herself as the odd one out because she doesn't have, even though she's close to like Fred and Daphne because they always team up together to go searching for clues. But I feel like she possibly feels like she's a bit of like the left one out, the one that's being left out the most because she just has her knowledge, and because Daphne's now gotten the highest test score, she feels like, oh, where do I fit in this like situation?
Yeah. Exactly. I think I agree with you there. Like, she has had this character for so long that she is the smart one. She knows everything. And then when that's taken away, it's almost like, oh gosh, what's the dynamic now? Because, like you were saying, she is kind of the one that we've got these strong dynamics with Fred, Daphne, Shaggy, and Scooby. But like, I'm thinking of the Witch's Ghost here. Ben Ravencroft's there, so she pairs off with him. She just kind of gets the new character for that movie as opposed to being incorporated in a pre-existing kind of format.
See, I'd never thought about that before. Because it is so true, like everyone is kind of coupled off almost, except for Velma. I mean, maybe that's why Velma always gets that, like you say, the kind of quirky character to latch onto. So, for instance, in, say, a movie like Camp Scare, there was that pervert that was following her around. And in this, there's another type of pervert that's following her around. And so she always seems to get the quirky side character to even, like, I guess that's maybe why they have the most love interests, if you think about it that way. Like, because even in something like the Phantasaur, they've got Windsor. So maybe that's why. I've never really thought about it that way.
Yeah, I guess they just attach her to whatever character is new. So where we're at now is they are on board the spaceship, and just something that I found amusing was that there was only 10 people going and there was about 50 seats in the room that they were in. And I don't know why that stood out to me, it just did.
Yeah, I mean, I guess first trip, they just want to make it a promotional thing, but I don't know, you'd imagine that eventually later down the line, if this was a successful trip, they would open it up to like the wider public. Yeah. But it is weird that they've like spent so much fuel like hauling just a few people up there.
And I mean, my notes at this point just were, and bearing in mind this was like my first watch through of this, was just that so far I'm finding it kind of odd because we've just met kind of Velma's side characters, and one of them's doing random karate moves, one's just obsessed with kind of their job and what it is they're doing. So I guess I'm just finding it a little bit odd so far, but it's certainly interesting.
I guess I can also ask this question as well. I don't know what everyone's takes of this is, but I know quite a few people on the internet, and even I at some point in this movie was like heavily backing the kind of shipping between Daphne and Shannon. But like, what did everyone else think about that?
Yeah, I think there was a really interesting dynamic there. It was certainly refreshing because I'm thinking of things like Camp Scare where there's a new female added in and Fred's all over them and Daphne gets jealous. And then there's a guy added in and then Fred gets jealous. And it's just refreshing to see a stronger relationship that's not like consisting of jealousy and stuff, that there's just like natural niceness to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit sad though because of the eventual like reveal, but it's like, I don't know. I very much got a vibe, but at the same time, we wouldn't give it like the same type of approach to it because it wasn't like Fred was getting jealous. Fred was almost on his own side quest doing a similar thing with the astronauts, you know, like not like reciprocated, but he was very much there to have that experience and to go along with everything. And I think eventually all of them find someone that they kind of either relate to or they're almost stuck with. Like I think Velma is eventually stuck with that kind of android that isn't an android and the alien hunter. So
Yeah, Fred spends his time trying to win like the astronaut people over. It's interesting. What did you think to did you say it's Shannon, JayBee?
Yeah, Shannon.
What did you think to Shannon initially, Rihanna?
I think initially my mind went to thinking about Scooby Doo and the Speed Demon with the other WWE crossover one where Daphne and Stephanie McMahon had that like connection over shoes and fashion and stuff, and it reminded me a little bit of that. But I think if like what happens in film didn't happen, I feel like Daphne and Shannon would probably be really good friends.
Yeah, I certainly think so. I think it was almost a confidence boost for Daphne's character, having somebody that was so relatable, so complimentary, because obviously she went through the thing at the start where she wasn't doing well with the driving test, and then when she got the highest test result, Velma was like, oh, you can't have done that. I feel like it was a nice little confidence builder for her to have someone there that was so complimentary and nice and stuff, so I guess it definitely served a purpose. Been there. The next kind of character we meet is the robot server, like the person, the kind of robot that's there to kind of assist them, I want to say. And I instantly found them quite spooky, quite creepy. But I mean, it is revealed later on, but I think it was almost disturbing how human-like they were. And then obviously it was revealed that they were in fact a human.
Well, I don't remember what they say, but I actually did find their dad joke genuinely funny. I don't know if I'm just getting old, but like, do you remember what their dad joke was?
No, I don't remember what joke they said at the start, no.
But it was meant to be intentionally unfunny, but I found it funny, so I don't know if that says more about me than the android itself, but oh well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're now at the stage where Shaggy and Scooby are about to see the alien, and I feel like this is just such a common dynamic at this point that it's always Shaggy and Scooby that see the monster first, and nobody believes them, and then of course it transpires that they were right in the end.
Yeah, and they believed them ultimately by deciding that they would never leave food like unattended or uneaten, which was kind of cool.
And at this point, I think they are just seeing the shadow. So the shadow doesn't give too much away. But what I will say is when like the monster's revealed for this one, my notes are just like block capitals that it's the scariest looking villain that we've seen. I don't know why, I just found them terrifying.
I mean, there's stakes with this one, which is amazing, because I think that that's something that can so often be left, but they're in space, which is inherently a very isolated situation, especially when the comms go down. And it reminds me about the first introduction of something like the El Chupacabra, where they're in the shadows before they're revealed.
Yeah.
Like, there's just a lot of tension built up, and they're isolated. And I think that's what makes the setup of this a lot scarier than the majority of the modern-day Scooby movies, so I don't know, it is really gaining points on that front for me.
Yeah. What did you think to the monster?
I found it terrifying, to be honest. There's a few Scooby Doo movies that have given me like the same vibes. One of them is Pirates Ahoy, and those pirates still scare me to this day. And I think it's because they're in the middle of the sea, and it's similar where they're in the middle of the sea, anything could happen. In this movie, they're in the middle of space, so the stakes are really high instead of it being, oh, they can just drive away and never come back. It's a case of, no, they're stuck with this monster and they have to find out before. I mean, it's, you know, it is a kids show at the end of the day, but we as adults now feel like they're stuck with a murderous monster. What could happen?
Yeah. Something else that I find almost makes this one scarier is that normally in a lot of Scooby movies we meet the villain right at the start. Like quite often they'll be in the opening titles, like you were saying with El Chupacabra, you'll see their eyes, you'll see their silhouette. Whereas with this one, I feel like we waited a while before we actually saw them. So it almost built up some more suspense as well.
Yeah, like it made a normal setting, dare I say even comedic setting, and then flipped it on its head. It almost played like a traditional horror movie, you know, in that way, where it starts off, you know, normal people in a normal setting, and then there's a bit of a dark twist, like there's funny characters, there's celebrities, they've won a trip. Oh wait, there's a monster. So I'm gaining a new appreciation for the setup of the movie. Just I don't know, just speaking to you. So I'm enjoying this a lot.
Me too.
I don't know. I think looking at the first half, I think maybe they could have done things either quicker or a bit more differently. I think there's definitely things that I would change, but at the same time, I think I'm enjoying this a lot so far.
So I feel like where we're up to now is they have just landed on the moon. They're seeing the moon's first luxury resort, which is an incredible building, absolutely huge. And we meet a character that says they've been there from the start, which is Hudson. And to me, they are instantly quite spooky, quite creepy. They're like, oh, people, I don't see people. Oh, look at you. And then they do a people dance, which JayBee was like, oh my goodness, this is the opposite of me, because you're not very people orientated, are you, JayBee? So to see, at least not face to face, so to see like somebody physically dancing at seeing other people, you found different.
I mean, maybe if I was like in space with nothing but like robots as company, I might grow to be more people-y, but at the moment I think I'm quite good.
So what did you think, if you remember when you first saw this, about just how the resort looked on the moon, the kind of characters at this point, Rihanna?
When I first watched it, I feel like in my mind the first half before we actually saw the alien and everything, it was going really slow. And I think that's part of the reason why I didn't enjoy it as much the first time around, but the second time around, I really enjoyed it. And I feel like at this stage, I was really getting to know like the different characters. I will admit I started to have like some suspicions on who possibly could be like messing with the gang and everything. And it's like I just feel like it was set up nicely that at this stage I had a suspicion, but then it changed quickly as the movie went on after that moment. And when like they actually got onto the moon, my mind again, it just went to Scooby Doo and the Cyber Chase when they were on the moon in that setting. I compared like little things like that, and I feel in some ways there were possibly some Easter eggs that I might have missed and need to go back and rewatch to figure them out.
Yeah, I suppose there's always that kind of thing with almost prequels, sequels that were made after the fact, and that if this is before the Cyber Chase timeline, then for all purposes they would be less surprised at seeing that they're on the moon in the Cyber Chase, or they'd be more equipped to deal with that situation. I'm disappointed we didn't get more like if there wasn't a sequence where they could make or choose a moon buggy, and you almost got the moon buggies from the Cyber Chase in this, although that would have been a bit contrived.
See, one thing that I've want to like kind of comment on is for you saying they'd be more prepared. We only ever really see Shaggy and Scooby actually go and explore the moon, because they got on the moon buggy ride, at which point they go to the junkyard and they almost have a romantic scene. They get a little montage dancing around together. They do this thing where they leave their footprints next to each other, and it's really sweet. And it's kind of contrasted with just before that, Velma and Daphne are having kind of more of, let's say, a disagreement about you know, Daphne's like, do you know what, you're just jealous that I got this result and did really well. So we're kind of seeing their negative relationship, and then that was contrasted by, like I said, like Shaggy and Scooby leaving these little footprints together, which I just thought was adorable.
Then again, if being in space has terrified them this much, and they've kind of been exposed to like scary aliens and the dangers of isolation, maybe if you're reading it a certain way, you can take it as though this is the reason why Shaggy and Scooby didn't try and go to space with Crystal and Amber. Maybe they just don't like space after this.
I mean, that being said, if they were working on that knowledge, they'd never ever go anywhere with Mystery Inc. ever, because they just know something's going to happen.
That's true.
So I guess they didn't learn from the mistakes and just keep going back.
I don't know. I think I would, even if I was like really scared of things, I think I would travel with Mystery Inc. through everything, you know.
Yeah, I guess so. So Shaggy and Scooby kind of get chased back by the alien, and then we meet the singing man.
Oh,
That's what I've labelled them, the singing man.
the U-boat. Was it U-boats? I think it is U-boat, and they break into song, don't they?
They do indeed. It's just interesting to see, and it's kind of funny how like Shaggy and Scooby kind of almost interrupt, like, okay, they're done. Oh, they're not done. Like, I don't know, I just find that amusing.
I don't know, the singing is odd, it's random, and I like this. I'm just trying to think about the movie that I didn't like the side characters for, where they weren't memorable.
Chill out, Scooby Doo.
Yes.
That's the one where we were like, okay, they're there so it can't be them, they're there so it can't be them. And actually, I've put that at the end of my notes. You know, when they're all appearing through those doors, I got that chill out vibe where I was like, okay, it's not them, it's not them. And then I was like, who's left? No one's left. And I actually hadn't even worked out what character it was, even though they were all there.
But I think this movie does a better job than Chill Out of building up the side characters, as for all they all have quirks, like Chill Out made an obvious kind of hunter character, an obvious mystical character. I think this does better making them unique from each other, giving them wants and needs, and you can see that people are given their own story arc, like the U-boat, you know, their mistrust of robots and technology. You've got Ridley coming to terms with fighting aliens, but then the fact that they've never met any aliens. So I think this does a much better job of that. But for the life of me, I can't quite think why there was this random musical sequence added in there, but
No,
it
me
didn't take
neither.
too much away.
So for me, the next prominent moment was Daphne and Fred kind of exploring that warehouse section where they both get stuck, one in the green goo and one in ice. And to me, this is kind of where I was like, I feel like they're here to trap the aliens, because these are quite clearly containment devices, I want to say.
Again, something else I'd never thought about.
Like, to me, they were used to hold them too still. So at that point, I was kind of clicking that maybe it was to capture an alien. I don't see why else they'd have that.
I guess the freezing thing, maybe I'm thinking about like Avengers and stuff, but in like the scene where there's like a hole blown in like the side of a spaceship in the Avengers, Iron Man like kind of freezes up the hole. So maybe they're both of things like if there's an emergency puncture in the spaceship, they can like, well, I guess if it's real life logic, wouldn't they be sucked out into space? I don't know. Probably. But I'm thinking like just for quick repairs, they like can use that to seal something up.
Maybe. So around this time, they realise that Shaggy and Scooby are telling the truth. The alien kind of is there. They definitely did see it because they weren't eating their food. And I want to call them the money man, the one that turns up in the suit at the start, is like, okay, I want to catch that alien. And I don't know, like, I kind of feel like because we've already been led to dislike this character, then you instantly assume that it's like to exploit them, to take them back to Earth and like almost show it off as opposed to stopping any further harm or anything.
Yeah, I mean, I'd almost argue, like, or ask, are we meant to dislike them? Like, have they done anything so far that's particularly villainous?
No, I just think that they're kind of portrayed, and Velma clearly doesn't like them at the start. You know, she says that they're money hungry and stuff like that.
Okay, that's a fair point. So I guess the next kind of part that's prominent in my notes here is that yeah, so their interview's been ruined, like, and I'm thinking then it could be Hudson, their brother, because they're kind of built up as almost the forgotten one. So it's like, okay, could it be a plot where they are wanting to get back, or they're wanting to get into the limelight a bit? But then you get Velma continuously like firing shots at Daphne, like, oh, I forgot you were the expert now, and stuff like that. And I think Velma does explain herself very well later on, but at this point, I think it's a bit unfair and a bit unnecessary.
Yeah, it's almost like if one test result can push you to this, are you actually a comfortable character? Like, are you okay?
Like, I can see where she's coming from, but it's like they've known each other for goodness knows how long now, and I feel like she could have just had a conversation beforehand rather than jumping to that kind of initial snide comment.
I think it just makes Velma seem really insecure, because I'm just kind of thinking, like, for example, in maths, we had this amazingly intelligent person. They ended up going to do chemistry at Oxford University. But there was one day when I got a higher test result than them in maths, and it was like the proudest day of my life. I was so happy. I was like smiling, I was dancing, I was so happy. But they didn't have a full-on meltdown that they didn't get the highest score for the first time ever. Like, I feel like it just happens and people accept it. I feel like it maybe says something underlying about Velma's character that it, like, she does go on to explain it later, but it does kind of open our eyes that Velma is I don't want to say a weaker character, but certainly a less confident character than what we think.
Maybe it's commentary on what they perceive their roles to be. So Velma's kind of like, you're the pretty one, I'm the clever one, but if you're better at being clever than I am, then what am I? So I kind of get that vibe, but at the same time, I'm also going back to what I said before, that she could have expressed that a little bit better. And, one test result doesn't make someone inherently smarter, because at the end of the day, what is smart? Like, and we don't really know what that test is about. Is it about astronaut personality? Is it about like what could it be? You know what I mean? Like maths-based questions because they've won a lottery to go on there. Like, I doubt it's like quantum physics. It must just be a questionnaire about why they want to go into space or how to handle certain situations in space. And I think you can be book smart in many ways, and you might not be, practically smart. And so it's like, for Velma to just lose out on one test doesn't make her the least intelligent, because intelligence can be measured in a lot of ways, I'd say.
And like, I remember in What's New Scooby Doo, we saw several times Daphne, she would like pick locks using a credit card or like some dental floss and things like that. And I feel like potentially the test that was in there is like, what would you do if this situation happened or that situation happened? And Daphne, if like it's based off of that personality, like era of Daphne, that she would be, oh well, I have a hairdryer on me and I can use this to heat something up and melt to create a film or something. Like, it would be something that no one would think about, but she would go to, oh, I can use like makeup to cover this up, and it would, something like that. And it could be something similar.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And just something else that's standing out to me from what you've said there as well is Velma spends a lot of her time going, aliens aren't real. And it's like, if you're doing a test about space and how you'd address certain circumstances, to say what would you do if you came across an alien, for her to answer, oh, nothing, because it's not going to happen because aliens aren't real, it's not going to help your case.
I mean, that's a decent question to kind of throw out there. Like, are we thinking genuinely, like, if we were interviewed by a NASA space astronaut and they asked, do you believe in aliens, what would we answer? Because there's like the element of not sounding ridiculous, but then there's like the kind of very real possibility that there are aliens out there.
I mean, what I'd say is there's so many planets in the atmosphere and everything, that, and just throughout galaxies and everything, that it seems almost impossible that life would have only formed on one planet. Like, that of all the millions and trillions of different planets and things out there, that those circumstances and that climate only formed in one place. But, like, I'm not saying that it's like, oh yeah, it's 2 planets across and we're going to find people. What I am saying is, I'd probably say that scientifically, it's likely that there's ecosystems and things that exist on other planets.
It's just mad to me that there's potentially a world like ours out there thinking the same thing, and they've got like completely different reference points. Like, maybe on their planet there's a TV show about a talking dog and a group of mystery solvers, you know, and they're kind of having similar discussions on their kind of form of a podcast there. I don't know. It's weird to think about. It definitely is. But I guess, Rihanna, would you say that you believed in aliens?
In some ways, it would be. I don't know how to phrase this, but I feel like it would be a little bit ignorant of humans to just like think that there's no other creature out there that can think like humans do. So I feel like it may not even be some like a planet that in another universe that breathes oxygen. It could be something that's silicon based or another element. And I feel like there is something out there, but in another galaxy that's, to quote Star Wars, in a galaxy far, far away. We don't know.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying.
I mean, just thinking, if we had... Oh, this is actually potentially controversial, but say everything happens the way it's said in the Bible. We started off as a man and a woman, and we brought life. That's the start of the world factually, and that's what we are. If we then went into space and found a planet with what we know dinosaurs are from our reality, that would be the most unbelievable, crazy planet to find, and yet we know it from our perspective now as, you know, these things were around. And it's like, for all it's like, we say as humans, like, typically, maybe there are aliens out there, but they're not going to be, you know, green, weird, bug-eyed, like creatures. But it's like thinking, well, on this planet, once upon a time, we had massive lizards with tiny arms. So it's like, well, anything is kind of possible by that logic. So maybe there are, like, big green aliens somewhere. We don't know.
Could be anything.
There could even be, like, a planet of Scoobies.
Indeed.
I'd like to go
live on
there.
a planet called Scooby.
We do indeed. Okay, so we're now at the stage where Fred is setting the first ever alien trap.
Ooh.
So it's a big moment for Fred. He's making a trap world record.
The extraterrestrial variant.
Okay, and it's one of those instances where Fred's trap, I wouldn't say it works perfectly, but the series of traps work first, like, straight away. So one of the traps that they set actually is successful. It catches the alien, and as they catch the alien, everyone starts to appear. And this is where I've kind of written, similar to what JayBee was saying earlier, that you almost get that chill out vibe where everyone runs in at the end, and like, it's kind of like, who's left? And for some reason, it just didn't register in my mind that Shannon wasn't there.
I'm sorry, I was like probably distracting you, I was grinning at you, but I just really like the way that you said the word alien there. I don't know why. It's probably just that time of the early morning where I'm getting a bit delirious, but I just like the way you said alien, the alien.
No, like, I don't know why I said it weirdly. But yeah, it was just kind of like, who is left? And I just don't know why their character didn't register with me. But I was like, is it just one of those ones where, you know, like, you sometimes watch, maybe I'm not the only one that ever got this, but like, I feel like sometimes I used to watch episodes of Scooby Doo, and when it was unmasked at the end, I was a bit like, were they in the episode? And I just kind of thought that that's what was going to happen at the end, because I genuinely didn't know who was left. What about you? I guess I'm going to start with Rihanna with this question. Did you, by the end of it, I know you said that you'd had some thoughts. Ultimately, when it was unmasked, did you kind of have an idea of who it was?
I did. I actually noticed that Shannon wasn't there at that point, but I did at the same time have the feeling that it would be like the earlier episodes of Scooby Doo where the person would be unmasked and we hadn't seen them in the episode. It would be just a random guy that was there, and part of me thought, would it be similar to that? Like, could it be someone who was lost in space that they wanted to get revenge because they've already they were left behind or something? But when I noticed Shannon wasn't in that part, I was like, no, I think she has something to do with it.
Yeah, and I did definitely pick up at the start when she was not only trying to get them to not go, because I think she said something like to Daphne, oh, your hair's so good, but it might get messed up in space, so maybe not go. Or
oh gosh, yeah, because they all look at Velma and she's like, well, I've not put mine on yet, and so.
Or the fact that she was caught unaware, like she was the only one that was like, oh well, I didn't know that you guys were coming. Like it was kind of sprung on me last minute. So
yeah,
it would be the one thing that they didn't count on.
And at this point, they begin to unmask a lot of things that kind of make sense, and it also shows, I think, some kind of consideration behind the plot. In that they talk about why they chose the celebrities that they did, how there was a reporting element of it, there was kind of the fitness element of it, and also that because Mystery Inc. were renowned for what they did, they were trying to create friction, which is why they swapped the scores. So we're all instantly assuming oh, of course, Velma was the one that passed. And then it turned out to be Shaggy, who I think is really the least likely candidate. Like we were saying at the start that we'd almost imagine they were the one that had the issue with driving and stuff.
Or imagine if it was a scenario like NASA test. You're in a spaceship, you crash on a barren alien planet, how do you survive? And Shaggy just comes up with the craziest ways to make food. I'd imagine maybe that would give them a few points.
I'd say that I'm surprised that they even agreed to go to space in the first place, because I wouldn't have said that much food could fit on a spaceship.
That's actually a good point, because Shaggy didn't even want to go to the outback in Legend of the Vampire. So why they've gone into space?
I guess there was a huge supply of Scooby snacks that they're about to stumble across, so
maybe.
It might be because of the moon cheese.
Oh.
Maybe.
Oh my gosh, that would be amazing. I want to try some of the moon cheese. I always think about Wallace and Gromit when they said the moon cheese.
Random side note for the moon cheese thing. I want to say it was Blackpool, but my nephew went on holiday somewhere.
Blackpool's not a holiday.
And they found some a moon cheese stick of rock associated with a Wallace and Gromit ride somewhere.
Ooh.
And they bought me this stick of rock back, and I'll admit now that I actually never tried it because I was like, surely this is going to be the weirdest thing in the world.
See, that surprises me because Preston's the Wallace and Gromit place, isn't there?
Yeah, I think the ride was in Blackpool, but I'm not sure.
No, well,
yeah, that was just a really random
Blackpool's got Nickelodeon World. I kind of want to go there, You got SpongeBob.
Mm-hmm.
Someone should open up Spooky Island somewhere, preferably in Australia, but maybe not because I don't think I'd be able to go for a while.
Yeah.
But there should be a Scooby World somewhere, and I think they do have stuff in America. Where did we order? We ordered a Scooby and Scrappy ornament from somewhere, and I think it was Warner Bros. Land.
It was a Warner Brothers store, I think.
Yeah, I don't know what our equivalent would be in the UK, but
we don't get the equivalent of much here, to be fair. So moving on again, continuing with the plot, the gang and everyone else there gets trapped at the kind of space station. Shannon makes their escape on the ship, and then it turns out that while being there, the person that was kind of left behind had been crafting a second ship because they just wanted to leave and they'd found that a lot had been there. But it gets blocked off by these crates of Scooby snacks, which of course Shaggy and Scooby have no problem eating their way through.
Are they Scooby snacks? Or
I think it's the moon equivalent of Scooby snacks.
They're U-boat cereal, aren't they? U-boat, I don't know, Kellogg's. They're cool edibles. But yeah. Oh, and they reveal that the android isn't really an android, but it's a person. But I kind of feel like that was definitely
we all
obvious.
saw that coming.
Not just from how they were acting, but the fact that you're telling me that there's this like the satellite station with primitive robots and a big clunky metal robot, and yet somehow they've managed to build one that's, say, a couple of thousand years more advanced to the point where they look like a person. You know, the gap in technology doesn't really line up in and of itself.
Yeah. And then we kind of see the thing that we were talking about before, where so everyone else like kind of passes out, and Velma's like, Daphne, you can do this. Like, I've seen you do it. You were there. There's only you that can fly this back. We need you to do it. And then all of a sudden, their relationship's rebuilt from every kind of bit of disagreement that had happened throughout, and any kind of jealousy. Their relationship's completely rebuilt, and Daphne saves the day. Takes them back to Earth, where they can kind of interrupt Shannon being like, oh, it was so sad, like, you know, I tried, but they just couldn't make it back, you know, it takes a professional to go into space, and then Daphne's like, no, it doesn't.
Anyone can go to space. Forever.
JayBee certainly hoping so. It's on your bucket list, isn't it, JayBee?
One day. I don't know if my brain will take it, like, would I have an aneurysm from that?
I don't know.
Because I can't scuba dive because I
imagine it could trigger your aneurysm, to be fair. I
think even if it would though, if I was like old enough, I'd just go, right, I'll go. I won't tell anyone. I'll just spend my last day in space. I'd like that. Would you support me in such an endeavour?
I'm sorry.
Why not?
I couldn't. But so Shannon gets brought to justice, and then we're going to go back to Daphne taking her driving lessons, and this time it's with Fred. So I guess sometimes it's easier to learn with people that you know. Like, I know, for example, JayBee hated the thought of driving lessons, and then when I got stuck in a car park, he was like, oh, it's fine, I'll drive the car out for you. And I guess just having someone that you know might help.
Well, it's about who, I think, because if I was with someone that I was too comfortable with, I could get frustrated so easily. But if it was someone like I didn't know, like a stranger, I feel that I would be inclined not to, like, get angry. I'd more, like, go, oh, it'd be a bit odd. But I don't know.
So I think that wraps up the movie. So that's kind of the end of the plot. If there's any other points on this movie anyone wants to add?
I think I'm good for now.
I think I'm good too.
Great. So in that case, let's kind of go to the verdicts. So JayBee, as always, you first. Scooby Doo Movie Monster Madness, smash or pass?
So, I don't know. It's a bit on the side where I can very much see how they've kept a formula. They've not really done a lot to take risks in terms of story arcs, development. You know, there's nothing here that we haven't seen before. But I think there's so many things that they do well, like the premise of the thing, like the fact that they've built up so much tension to the fact that maybe I haven't felt like the gang's been in danger since maybe like even Camp Scare. And even then, I think this maybe picks it up or not, because this has been one of the ones where they haven't had the option to leave. Like Zombie Island, like the only escape pod was that Jacques guy, and that was a villain.
That was terrifying.
And similarly here, like, who can we trust? Like, yeah, there's this billionaire kind of philanthropist there, but do we trust them? Probably not. There's an alien hunter there that offers security, but they're also a bit kooky, so they might not be reliable either. And then, of course, the only person that Daphne trusts besides the gang there is revealed to be like the monster. So very, very, it's got very good tension. So I think I'm definitely gonna say smash for Moon Monster Madness. But I guess, Millie, do you smash or pass Moon Monster Madness?
I would say that the villain is quite scary, which is obviously helpful, I think, sometimes. And I'd also say that I've enjoyed it so much that talking to you both about it. I'd say I've enjoyed talking to you both more about it than I did watching it. I personally don't think it's something that I'd go out of my way to watch. Like I said, my predominant enjoyment from this has been the conversation. So for that reason, I would probably say pass for this one, because it's not something that I'd want to watch this like that much again. So kind of one vote each there. So Rhiannon, we're coming over to you here. Would you say smash, this is one you've really enjoyed, you'd like to watch again, or pass, it wasn't kind of up there with your favourites?
I think if you're someone who really enjoys things like sci-fi, things like Aliens, Star Trek, things like that, where you can kind of, I feel like there was a lot of smaller, subtler references to things like that. I feel like you would really enjoy it. If like the villain was really scary, but talking to both of you about it, I've kind of reignited a love for it. I'd say I'd smash it. I would 100% watch it again, and I think I might watch it again before I fall asleep tonight.
Oh gosh, and
That's amazing.
yeah, huge shout out to you as well, because I think maybe people can tell by the accent, but you're also in the UK, and we're used to like having an American on the show where it's like 2 a.m. for us, and they're like, "Ha, time for dinner." And I'm like,
yeah, I mean, I think it's just important to acknowledge here that we messaged you like half an hour before we started recording. It had already gone midnight, I think, when we spoke to you, and you were like, "Yeah, it's fine, I can do it." And so for that, thank you so much. Like, honestly, to fill in last minute so you'd not had any notice about the movie or anything, it is honestly just incredible. It's been incredible to have you on the podcast, though. It's just, I've enjoyed that so much, and I'd certainly love to have you as a guest again, because it has been amazing. Now, JayBee, I know you like to go over any kind of community news at this point.
yeah, I guess I've just got something to say. I guess about Smash as well. So obviously Smash is still around, very, very busy at the moment. People that do follow their channel will know that they've got a lot going on now. I don't know if people in the comment section particularly want us to, I don't know, go through the movie again with Smash, but no doubt when they are back, hopefully next time to discuss, I think it's the Kiss episode, isn't it?
It is indeed.
Which I'm not looking forward to. But if you do want them to kind of give a verdict on Moon Monster Madness, just comment down below. We can definitely do that. But I don't think I have much in the way of community news, you know? Like,
I'm gonna say,
oh, okay, I've got one, but you can go.
I feel like I'm just gonna stall on what yours was.
No.
So in terms of community news, I know that DeLisle has done a kind of Comic-Con sending for like signings and stuff. So today JayBee has bought himself a little Daphne signature.
Well, I've messed mine up.
You forgot to order the authentication, but we've emailed them.
Now it's charging me $35 to.
You've emailed, we've sorted it. It's fine.
The
community news is that that's there and that's available. I guess channel news, we've got an exciting interview coming up. We did talk in, I want to say, our last video about a giveaway that's coming up.
Oh, good, yeah. I thought you were going to like reveal it then.
No.
Because I hate revealing or even talking about interviews before we've done them, because obviously some things can always fall through.
I guess what I would say is that we do have a really exciting Scooby interview coming up on the channel, and that we are doing a giveaway. Can I say what for?
Yeah,
it's on our page. Like, it's for, we're giving away 3 Space Kook sodas, 1 Chase and 2 Common. So I think that's it for my Scooby related stuff.
The Chase giveaway, I'm really excited about, because we've never given away a Chase before, but I'm excited to do it. So I think we plan to record that interview next Thursday to hopefully get out Saturday. So that's when in the description all the terms for that giveaway will be said. So really looking forward to that. I think that's going to be such a good giveaway, and I hope to do more. The community news I had is kind of fitting actually for this episode, because it's very much centered around the UK. So we ordered the Hex Girls Funko Pops from Double Box Toys way back in May when they were first announced, and we've heard nothing about it since, despite Pop Culture mailing them from Australia to the UK, despite people apparently seeing them in like Hot Topics and stuff like that. But when I checked on Double Box Toys maybe a couple of days ago, it said that they estimated the Hex Girls to arrive from them some point either, December to January. So anytime either December or January. So a bit later than Pop Culture, a bit later than in America and Australia, but we are definitely getting them, so that's some pretty good news for like UK people. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else, but I guess Rihanna, if you know anything that's going on in the community at the moment that you'd like to highlight, that would be cool. But there could be nothing because I'm struggling to think about some at the moment.
I think the only one that I know about was DeLisle's Comic-Con signing thingy going on. I think that was the only one that I know about.
And I think that's certainly interesting because, I don't know, I feel like sometimes in the UK we kind of lack the opportunities with like Comic-Con signing, stuff like that. So just to be aware of the kind of send-in ones is always really important. But yeah, I think that's everything. So thank you so much for listening. As JayBee has already said, we have that interview coming up next week.
And of course, Rihanna's links will be in the description. There's the Instagram, so do go follow that.
And thank you so much again just for how amazing you were, like jumping into this last minute, and you just had so much to contribute. It's been absolutely incredible, so thank you so much. We hope you've enjoyed it.
Really enjoyed it, and thank you for asking me. Like, I'm honestly happy any time of the day, early hours of the morning, to talk about Scooby. I think my mum and my brother and my sister, they get a bit fed up of hearing me talk about Scooby so much, so it's nice to talk to other people about it.
That's amazing. It's certainly good to have someone else to speak to too, because I think JayBee especially finds that if he tries to talk to his family about Scooby Doo, they try to just leave the room. So,
well,
it's just good to have people to speak to about it and that are on the same page and the same level.
Well, I can't speak to them about it in front of you because all they'll remember is my crush on Daphne. That's all they'll tell you about it. And then I'd get embarrassed. But you know what I mean? I can't mention it in front of them.
No.
Because I'm a shy boy.
So yeah, like we said, we'll be back next week with an interview. And also, JayBee, I guess, when is the Kiss episode going to be scheduled to come out if we've got the interview next Saturday?
Oh, see, it's tricky.
I'm putting you on the spot here.
It depends on, I guess, smASH's availability. It could be that we need to get someone else to fill in for that episode as well, so I guess, I don't know, if you're listening to this, I don't know if that will interest you. I don't know, it's weird because I'm nervous to, like, even this I was nervous to do, like the thought about smASH or pass without smASH. It's a bit weird to think about, but at the same time, I don't know, maybe it's just a case of testing the waters. Like, this has been a really good episode and I love it, but if it like defeats the purpose to not have smASH, like in terms of the opinions of the people listening to it, then I don't know what to do. But I would say, in my ideal world, we'd have that out possibly on the
Saturday as well.
The next Saturday.
Okay.
See, here's the thing. If it was up to me, we would do this recording, the Kiss recording, before the interview, and then get the interview out on Friday and get the Kiss episode out on the Saturday.
Basically, what you can take away from this is it very much depends on our organisation skills, and to stay on the Instagram and Twitter pages to find out when it's going to be out. Also,
next time we do a regular show as well, there'll be a few changes to the visual.
Oh, yeah. Because it's December.
Yeah, so something exciting coming up for that, which I can't wait to show off in a video, so that's going to be fun.
And again, I just want to thank you so much for being our guest today, because honestly, like JayBee was saying, it's like the first episode we've done without smASH, and honestly, I just don't think, like, I just think you've been so amazing that honestly, it just felt like a normal episode.
Yeah, I mean,
We've had great conversations.
I've had to be on my best behaviour, but I've enjoyed it.
Okay, so again, thank you so much to everyone for listening. Like we said, links will be in the description, and please like, comment and subscribe.
JayBee and Millie.